welcome to Intuition to Income. This is Abby Gooch, and I'm here today with Susan, and Susan is this amazing lady. I just still remember talking to her in my car, being like, Susan, can we please reschedule, because life is just flowing, but I really want you on the show. So I'm just really grateful that she's here and that we are actually able to connect, and she travels a lot, as do I, obviously. So it's just a miracle that we're here today together at this beautiful time. So Susan, if you can introduce yourself to the audience and let them know why I'm so excited that you're here with everything that you're doing and just who you are.
Well, I've been practicing spiritual disciplines for 50 years. I spent 22 years in an ashram with a spiritual master from India who was the guru of the Beatles and the guru of Deepak Chopra. His name is Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. And I was on his personal staff for 6 of those years. So I had many, many years very intimately connected with him in a master-disciple relationship. And then after I left the ashram, I started writing books and teaching another form of meditation that I didn't learn from my guru, that I learned from someone else. And I call it divine revelation. And I started teaching that, and then I started writing books about it. And so far, I have 14 books in print.
Wow. So can you tell us a little bit about Divine Revelation? Like, that just sounds like a fun title.
Well, yeah, it's about learning how to listen to the still small voice within and how to use that divine connection, that powerful connection in your everyday life to solve everyday problems, to receive healing, wisdom, inspiration from within yourself, and to be guided, to be led by spirit in your everyday life so that you can make decisions with peaceful confidence.
That's awesome. I love that. So I was just talking to my business manager about that, about making choices and how sometimes we make those choices that are aligned and everything works out, but occasionally we might misstep and not, and that is just hard. It just creates a different experience. So when they're peaceful and they're calm, they're led by spirit, things just, work out. So can you give us an example and maybe an exercise of how we can start to hear that and tune into that inner voice?
Really, listening to the inner voice is very, very simple. All that you have to do is just sit down in a chair, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths and get quiet and get still. And you might take a few more deep breaths. And as you take the deep breaths, you're getting more and more quiet, more and more still. And in between the very deep breaths that you take, just breathe normally and get into more of a deep, quiet, and meditative state. And the deep breaths will take you there into that quiet state. And then when you feel very centered and balanced and in a state of equilibrium, a state where you feel that you are integrated, that you are whole, that you are complete, where you're in a state of perfect inner peace, then you do something that most people never do during meditation. And that is that you ask something. You ask a question or you ask for guidance. You call upon a divine being and ask that being. You call upon a divine being by name, actually, would be the best. And then you ask that being to help you with a problem that you have in your life. You can ask a question about that problem, perhaps ask for guidance about that problem. And then you take another big, deep breath. And then you do what I call the do nothing program. That means do nothing, nothing, and less than nothing. And as you do the do nothing program, that the answer to your question or problem or whatever it is that you have asked for occurs to you in your mind. It comes into your mind either visually, auditorily, or through feeling, kinesthetically. So you either see the answer, feel the answer, or you hear the answer in your inner ear, meaning hear your answer clairaudiently, so you're hearing the words that are the answer to your question or concern, or you see a vision that gives you an idea of what the answer is, or you get this like a gut feeling. So those are the 3 basic ways that we receive messages from the still small voice within. It's not necessarily a voice, it can be a vision or a feeling.
That's beautiful. I love the way that you described it, because it really is, it's an internal experience, but it's just like you or I are talking. It's, you hear it from within, you know. It's like, I recently took another trip to Bali, and the second time I went back in the same summer, I heard a little voice say, "It's not safe to go." And I was like, no, that's just my head. No, it wasn't safe to go. I got deathly sick, like deathly sick. I had to come back and go to hospital. I had a horrible infection, bacteria infection that I got from food that I ate there. So that was my test. It was like my learning, because I've always heard that voice, right, and guided thousands of people through it. But I was like, well, maybe that's my head. I just want to know, is that for real? No, it's for freaking real. It is absolutely for real. And also, you know, I was talking to a client yesterday when you said inner vision. Sometimes it's hard for people to access it right away. So what I told her is to imagine. Like when we're kids, we imagine. It's like that same faculty. Like you may not see it yet with your eyes, but when you're imagining, it's an internal vision. Like we can imagine like a pink like pony walking down the beach right now, right? Like you have to imagine it from within.
Yeah.
And so when the vision comes, which I know you're talking about, it actually comes to you. You see it from within, that same faculty, but it's coming to you through you. So, and the last example you gave was a gut feeling, right? So it's like that gut knowing, you know, that we can feel that kinesthetic. Usually there's a yes or a no, or just that confirmation. So I love that you mentioned all three, because they can come, all of them or one or whatever. So yeah, what were you going to say?
Yes. Everyone has one of those faculties more developed than the others. Actually, most people are more kinesthetic. Generally, in just the general population, more people are kinesthetic. They get feelings, they get sensings. In other words, if they walk into a room, they can sense maybe even the atmosphere of the house they just walked into, or the building they walked into. They might get a creepy feeling, or they might get a warm, fuzzy feeling, or different kinds of feelings. Or perhaps if they're with a group of people, or they're meeting new people, they have a sense about what those people are like. Maybe one person seems to exude confidence, or one person seems to be kind of boisterous or maybe overly confident, or another person seems to be very shy, timid. Maybe one person seems really angry. I mean, we can sense feelings of other people. And I think everyone can do that. So everybody is clairsentient. Some people are more clairaudient. Some people are more clairvoyant. What I recommend is that you go with the sense that you already are good at. There's no reason to beat your head against the wall to try to develop senses that you're not good at. If you can use the sense that you are good at, you can do everything with intuition. You can receive guidance. You can get answers to your questions. You can communicate with the divine presence and your higher self. So, you know, you can develop any sense, but obviously some people are going to be better at certain things than other things. But the important thing to realize is that if you want to get good at what we call extrasensory perception, although I don't like that term, I like the term either subtle sensory perception or supersensory perception, because there is no extrasensory perception. We are always using our senses, whether it's subtle senses or gross senses. So we can develop this supersensory perception through practice. It's just like anything else in life that you want to learn, like playing the piano or being a mathematician or whatever it is that you want to learn. Practice, 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 practice. And one thing that's very, very important as you practice, practice, practice is don't be afraid to make a mistake. You made a mistake when you went to Bali, but you know, don't be afraid to make a mistake, because sometimes you're going to make mistakes. Sometimes you're not going to be clear, or you're not going to trust it. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. As you're practicing. Obviously, if people are playing the piano, they're going to be making a lot of mistakes at first. But then eventually they don't make mistakes anymore.
I love that. Thank you for saying that. I needed to hear it. I'm like, need some confirmation too that I'm going to be okay. And I did ask them, I said, so if it's not safe, will I still be able to heal? And they said yes. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to trust that the healing will happen. But probably one of the biggest mistakes of my life, I mean, I've been intuitively practicing since I was 19 professionally, right? So to do this, I'm 33 now. I mean, I really felt like I needed to test it, you know, for whatever reason. But to trust in our wholeness is what's coming through. Because to me, Susan, intuition is our innate well-being. It's our inner compass. It's the way we're connected to source. So,
Yeah.
what you're talking about is really developing that sense of intuition. And that, I agree with you. I think that's how I felt it too, is first a kinesthetic gut feeling. And then it was so heightened that then I actually did start to first see and then hear. And now it's just nonstop. That's the other reason I'm like, really, is this my head or is it my head nonstop? Which I'm sure you can relate. But you can tell them to be quiet. I get that. But it is this, yeah, it's becoming a more loving relationship for me because it's like I see the wisdom. And appreciate you showing up just in my life, because it's like I really do feel we call on the people we need to kind of get reminders to hear, ourselves and what's going on. So, to anybody that's wanting guidance, to get those questions answered, like I just really think it's valuable that you shared the simple process
Yes.
to trust.
The most important thing and the main central kernel of everything that I teach is one thing, and that is ask and it shall be given unto you. The trouble is that we don't ask, or we forget to ask, or we are afraid to ask, or we think that we're not worthy to ask. A lot of things go through our heads, but in fact, asking is the way to receive inner guidance. So if you don't ask the question, you're not going to get the answer. If you don't ask to be lifted, for example, into a higher consciousness, you're not going to be lifted. If you don't ask for spirit to come by calling upon spirit with a capital S, or a divine name, a name of a divine deity or an angel or archangel or divine being, ascended master, if you're not calling upon them, then they're not just going to show up. You have to ask. So asking is really, really important. And like I said, you're in the deep meditative state and you just do this one thing that people normally don't do, and that is you ask. You ask a question, or you ask for guidance, you ask for inspiration, or you ask for healing. You ask for whatever it is you want that day. And then you go into that, for example, taking another deep breath and doing what I call the do nothing program. And when you're in the do nothing program, you're in a neutral state, but open to receive. Neutral and open to receive. And that's when you receive the message. Now, there may be blocks. It's possible that there are blocks. That's why I teach healing prayers as well. And in my books, I have several books about this process. One is called Divine Revelation. Another is called Awaken Your Divine Intuition. Another one is Awaken Your Third Eye. And another one that specifically deals with healing the things, the blockages that are preventing you from getting clear inner guidance, is called Instant Healing. But Instant Healing, that book, is a lot more than just getting healing prayers for keeping clear with inner guidance. It actually has healing prayers for every possible thing you could ever want. It has 243 healing prayers and affirmations in it. It's a great book. Instant healing. And it works.
Can you give an example of that? Because that was actually going to be a question that I had for you. Is I've experienced asking, and then if there's blocks to receiving because of conditioning. So like what I've seen is the unconscious mind, myself included, can sometimes try to override the spirit, right? It comes in conflict with the intuition, which is so powerful, right? It contains the essence of the universe. And so can you give a simple example of a prayer that you're saying will release the block to receiving for whatever anybody is wanting to manifest in their life?
Okay, so it depends on what the block is. The block is either internal or external. The block is either in your mind, perhaps from your habits, conditioning, patterning, beliefs, BS, what I call belief systems, or old ideas, encrusted beliefs. Either it's from that, or there could be an astral entity from the lower astral world who's interfering with you getting your clear inner guidance. So let's say that it is what we call thought form, let's say it's your own inner belief that's preventing you from getting that clear nerve guidance. So you would do what I call the thought form healing. The thought form healing is really very simple. It's just a matter of releasing the negative. Well, it's a matter of first getting in touch with what the problem is, and secondly, releasing that and then replacing it with something else. So it's something like this. You could use it. There's many forms of the thought form healing, but the simplest form would be, I now release the thought of fill in the blank, and I now accept the thought of fill in the blank. That would be the simplest version of that prayer. Or you could say something like, I call upon the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of truth and wholeness, to release from my mind all limiting thoughts and feelings that no longer serve me. I now release from my mind thoughts of blank, 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 blankety blank, and they are gone. And I'm now filled with new creative thoughts of blankety, blankety blank. So what you're doing is, when you fill in the blanks, you actually close your eyes and get in touch with those things that are coming up for you that need healing. And then you release them and you replace them with their opposites. So in the first blank space, if you had said unworthiness, in the second blank space, you'll say worthiness or self-worth, self-love. So that's how that prayer works, and it's very powerful. Mm-hmm. It really, actually, it's an incredibly powerful prayer. With that prayer, you can heal anything. I know it sounds crazy, but you can heal anything, physical, mental, emotional, with that one prayer.
Wow.
Even the simplest version of it. I now release thoughts of anger, and I am filled with thoughts of love. Right there. You have an instant healing just saying that. It's so powerful.
Wow, I love it. So, all right, so I'm going to practice. So I'm having a little bit of numbness in my legs from traveling. So I would say I now release the feeling of numbness in my leg, and exactly. I replace it with strength, clarity, and restoration.
Yeah, I replace it with full feeling in my legs. I replace it with perfect health in my legs.
Full feeling in my legs. Okay. Okay. It's funny, the word resonate. It's like when you say full feeling, I'm like, that resonates, like it feels right. I love that word. Like when you say this prayer to yourself, so whatever it is that you're clearing, you say, release this, and I replace it with that. When it feels right, it resonates, then you know you've hit it. Like when you said full feeling, I'm like, yep, that's it. And even now I feel a lot of full feeling in my legs. And it might be something you repeat too, like over and over, or is it just once? I don't know. It's your process.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a good idea to repeat the healing prayer from time to time until the healing is complete, until you actually get healed.
That's so cool. I love it. I love it. I also think it represents something. Like I'm feeling my legs. I'm like, what does that represent? There's sometimes a higher level. You know what I'm saying? I can kind of feel the energy that's connected to the physical. So it's just that.
There is usually a cause behind the cause of any physical problem. Mm-hmm. And if you can discover that cause behind the cause, that will help you to heal it. Mm-hmm. Now, what I'd like to do is teach you one other really great affirmation right now. It's called the self-authority affirmation. Now, the self-authority affirmation is really great for anyone who's a psychic sponge. A psychic sponge is a person who absorbs energy around them in the environment, just like a sponge absorbs water. So by the end of the day, this person is dragging, like feeling completely exhausted. All they can do is just lie on their bed and go to sleep. They're just so drained from every person they encounter, from every incident in their life through their day. So that's what I call a psychic sponge. They feel like they've been dragged through the mud all day, like a wet mop. So this is for a psychic sponge. It's anytime you feel the need for divine protection, anytime maybe you feel a little apprehensive about meeting someone, maybe you have a test, maybe you have to be at an interview for a job interview or something. Anytime you feel a little bit timid, a little bit scared, or anytime you're feeling a little off anytime you feel off, this affirmation will bring you back to center immediately, and it will make you feel very strong and powerful. And it's always the first affirmation that I teach in every book. I've got it in almost every one of my books. It's a really great affirmation. So it goes like this. I am in control. I am one with God. I am the only authority in my life. I am divinely protected by the light of my being. I close off my aura and body of light to the lower astral levels of mind, and I open to the spiritual world. Thank you, God, and so it is.
Wow, that's amazing. I love
Sarah Carr.
Wow, I'm like, can you write that down and email that to me? That is awesome. That's something I want to like put in my car, you know, that's like a constant, you know, when I'm driving or it's like, wow, thank you. Thank you for your generosity. Wow, that's amazing. Wow, she's giving us so much. So, I don't know, Susan, what else would you like to share? It's like so fun to just kind of let it guide us on this interview. Such a fun path. Is there anything you'd like to share about your personal journey as far as using your intuition?
Well, when you talked about the story about Bali, you reminded me of one story. And that was, it was like 1990, 94, I don't know, sometime around then. And, you know, I do my best to follow my inner guidance all the time. It's not easy, by the way, to do that. It's actually very challenging.
Yes, I attest.
You might think that your life becomes easier when you follow your inner guidance. It does in some ways. It's a really miraculous life, but the challenge is to actually do what Spirit tells you to say, what Spirit tells you to do, to do that. So, I mean, it's easy to listen to the inner voice. I actually taught you how to do that. And it's easy to be sure that it's clear. In my books that I mentioned, I have a 10-test system so that you can test the inner voice to make sure that it's authentic, that it's real, that it's clear, that it's really coming from Spirit and not from any other level of consciousness. And so those are easy, but what's difficult is actually getting the guidance, following the guidance. And Spirit told me to get a job as a security guard in a big industrial park. So there I was in my little hat, my little badge, my little outfit, my uniform, and I was a security guard. So I don't know if you know much about being a security guard, but there's not a whole heck of a lot to do when you're a security guard. So I brought my computer to the guardhouse, and I actually was working on editing my book. So that worked out really well for about a year. And then suddenly Spirit said, hey, now it's time to quit the job. And I kept getting the message over and over, quit the job, quit the job, quit the job. But I didn't listen. And then one day, my relief didn't come to the guardhouse. And if you're a security guard, you know, what do you do when your relief doesn't come? Well, you have to stay there. That's what you do. So I called up the supervisor and I said, hey, my relief hasn't come. What do I do? He said, you have to stay. You can't leave. And I said, well, I have to go teach a meditation class. I can't stay. He said, you must stay. So I waited, half an hour, waited an hour. Then I called the guy back and I said, my relief still hasn't come. I have to leave. He said, your relief will be there in half an hour. Just stay. So I stayed half an hour, and then I tried to call the security guard back, the supervisor back, and he wasn't there anymore. And I left him a message. I said, hey, I couldn't stay. I had to leave. I had to teach a meditation class, so I just couldn't stay. So after I left and went and taught my meditation class, and then work, I called the guy up and I said, hey, you know, I had to leave. And he said, you have been terminated. Well, the minute he said that I had been terminated, my higher self, my angels, my inner guidance, whatever you want to call it, my divine beings around me, they started having a party. They were celebrating, reveling, balloons were going off. They were, all this huge party was going on. She finally got rid of her stupid job. Well, guess what? I didn't even listen to the party. Instead, I called the supervisor back and I begged for my job back. And you know what? He gave it back to me. So the very next night, there I am. At the end of the night, I'm closing the gates. I close the front gate, the middle gate. Then I get to the back gate, and I'm trying to pull on this, pull on this wrought iron gate. But it's not closing. It always closes. I couldn't figure out why it's not closing. All of a sudden, the gate started falling over on me. It fell over. It was a very big 8-foot wrought iron gate. It falls over. It knocks me down. It pins my leg, and I'm pinned under this gate. And I'm screaming bloody murder under this gate. And happily, luckily, a gentleman came along. He had to pick something up that he had left at work. So it was a dark, abandoned, area, an industrial park. But he happened to show up. He's actually saved my life. And he sort of picked up the gate a few inches and told me, mainly he said, don't move. After I scooted out from under the gate, he said, don't move. I said, oh, no, I can get up. It turned out my leg had nearly been severed in half. Wow. And 4 operations later, thank God, I can walk. Thank God.
I'm so glad I'm not alone. Not that I want that for you.
Rehabilitation, finally, I was okay. So that's what happens. That's what happens when you don't listen to your inner voice.
Wow.
And by the way, by the way, I told my friend, hey, I keep getting this message, quit the job, quit the job, quit the job. And I said to him, but you know what? I'm not going to quit because I'm living in fear. I'm afraid that if I quit my stupid minimum wage job, that I'll starve to death and I won't be able to support myself. So that was my excuse I gave my friend. And he said, hey, you know what, Susan, you're the teacher of divine revelation. Maybe you should quit the job since the spirit is telling you to quit. Well, I didn't listen to him either.
Wow. I mean, I really don't mean that in any other way than I'm glad I'm not alone. Like I wouldn't want you or anybody to go through that. But I will tell you, I was so hard on myself because I've always followed, always. And so to test it and find out what happens when you don't, like, it's pretty traumatic would be a great experience to say the experience, and they're still there to help us, right? So for me, once I realized that I have been listening to my guides and I've been sent tons of angels, including you, to say, okay, hey, like here's what you need for your healing and to keep healing others. So it's ironic. It's totally perfect. That's why I said it's a miracle that we're able to talk today. And listen, for anybody that else is kind of wondering, well, do I trust that inner voice? And is it safe to follow it? I actually remember when I opened my certification school, I did a video on, is it safe to follow my intuition? And it was like 1.5 minutes long. It was like, I don't even remember. You can get it on lifeforceconnection.com, but I don't remember where on the site, somewhere on there. And it's like basically saying, yeah, it's safe to follow your intuition. Think of the times you have and think of the times you haven't. And so like what works?
The important thing is to remember, don't be afraid to make a mistake.
Because why? Don't because you're always going to be supported to heal, or because I do
practice. It takes practice to get clear. It takes practice to get good at this. So don't be afraid. Go out on a limb and follow your inner guidance. Don't be afraid.
It's so funny, Susan. I just went, my inner child took me to get frozen yogurt a couple of days ago, and there was something on the wall that said, don't be afraid to go out on the limb because that's where all the fruit is.
No, that's
so I was like, premonitioning that you're going to have that, say that. Yeah, because it's true. I mean, I will tell you the risks I've taken. I mean, I started a company so young on not knowing, and I trusted it. And it's like, as you keep doing that, no matter who you are, your path will unfold. It just will. What are the blocks that you see when you're working with, I know you're a big speaker, like maybe your audience or your individual clients, to following their intuition? Like, is it fear that usually comes up, or what do you see and how do you get them through that block of trusting and following? Like we've all learned.
A lot of times what I find is that they don't trust it. They don't think that it's real.
Yeah.
They think, oh, I just made that up.
Right.
Well, yeah, of course you made it up. It's your higher self speaking. Your higher self just made that up, yeah.
No, do you know who Sonia Choquette is? She's another intuitive, and she's a colleague, and I remember I read something in her book one time, and she said that, something very similar. She did a Living Your Heart's Desire workshop, and they're like, well, I just feel like I'm making up. And she's like, of course you are. Exactly what you said. But like it's you. Like you're making everything else up too. You know? So it's like that's your, like you said, higher guidance.
Yeah.
It is, you know, I think for me, it's like I always wanted the physical evidence, you know, so I would trust it and then wait for the physical, right? So like, I think that's why I started a business. It was like living proof for my mind to be like, oh yeah, this is real. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I trusted and here's what physically manifested. But until you trust, you probably won't get that physical manifestation because you have to know it's real. You got to believe it's real. It's really it. For sure.
Well, faith comes with experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Faith comes with experience. The more you practice, the more you see these miracles taking place over and over and over, the more faith you acquire.
Yeah.
Because faith comes from experience.
And then you test it. I mean, it's like, I mean, I built this international company, went to go work with these kiddos in Bali, right? Tons of faith, right? I mean, I had the most faith I've ever had. And then I crashed right after that. So like you said, no matter how high or wide you're going in your guidance, like you can have an experience of a learning. You know, I'm hearing it's a mistake to learn. Do you know what I'm saying? It's not a punishment thing, which I was raised with fundamental Christian beliefs. It was very punishing. So I actually had to clear that out of the way because as soon as I got to Bali, my guides were like, we don't judge you. We know you're going to get sick, but we don't judge you. Thanks for not judging me. And I guess it's my responsibility to listen, right? So it becomes humorous after a while. I think once you get through the terror of it, like you and I both experienced through healing our bodies, it's like, wow, like, yeah, it's significant, but we never forget, right? Truly, truly. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to add for the audience as far as, you know, how they can start today following their intuition? We talked about inner guidance. Is there any other thing that you want to maybe give them as like an exercise or like homework, so to speak, for them to practice?
Well, I would say to take time every day to get quiet, to get centered within yourself and to ask. So even if you spend 5 minutes every day, make that a habit to get quiet, to get centered, to, you know, close your eyes, take a few deep breaths, get quiet and centered, and just ask something. Ask for something. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, one thing about asking is very, very, very important, and that is no fortune-telling questions. Now, what do I mean by fortune-telling questions? Fortune-telling questions start with something like, will I, will he, will she, will this happen, when will this happen, when will I get this, when will I get that, will I get this, will I get that, will I be able to marry Jerry Joe, or, you know, whatever. Those are all fortune-telling questions. And in the system that I teach, I highly recommend that you don't ask fortune-telling questions. And there's a specific reason for that. And the reason is, when you ask fortune-telling questions, you're saying to the universe, hey, universe, I don't have any control over my life. What's going to happen to me? What do the fates have in store for me? In other words, you're asking, assuming that you have no free will. But that's not true. Obviously, the truth is you create your own reality moment by moment with every thought, every word, and every deed. As Buddha said, the first verse of the first first chapter of the Dhammapada, first verse, he says, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. Now that's a stunning statement, actually, when you think about it. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. Not some of what we are, not every other Tuesday, not occasionally, but all that we are is the result of what we have thought. So what that means is, and by the way, he goes on in that, he continues in that verse to go on to say, if a person speaks or acts with a pure thought, then happiness follows him or her. If a person speaks or acts with an impure thought, then unhappiness follows him or her. So in that complete verse, what we have is the secret of life right there. He says that we are creating our reality and our destiny through three things: thoughts, words, and deeds. He says, when you speak or act, that means, first he says thought, and then he says speak or act. So thoughts, words, and deeds, those are the three things that are creating our destiny and our reality. So if you're asked that question about will something happen, you're saying to the universe, oh, I'm not creating this. I'm not creating my life myself. I'm not creating my life through my thoughts, words, and deeds. There's some other force that's creating my life. In other words, there's something is happening to me. I'm not happening to myself. The truth is that you are happening to yourself through every thought, word, and deed that you are experiencing.
Wow.
You're creating your own destiny, moment by moment. In India, they call that kriyamana karma, which means the actions that you create moment by moment by moment through every thought, word, and deed.
Wow, it's really powerful because I do intuitive readings, but same as you, I won't read into the future. I'll say, I'll read your gifts, I'll read what's blocking you, I'll read you how to connect with your higher self. But since I was 19, I had the same thing. I'm like, there's just something in me that said, I can't actually tell you that because I don't know what you're going to do with your free will, and you have that much power. So it brings it back to us.
We are all powerful beings. We create our own destiny. Nothing else, no other force is creating our destiny for us. So it's a good idea to realize that. And then once you realize that, you can be more careful about what you think, say, and do. For example, if you keep on saying, oh, I'm so sad, or oh, I'm so sick, I'm so sick, oh, I'm so lonely, I'm so poor, I'm so poor. If you continue to say that over and over and over, guess what's going to manifest in your life? But more of whatever you continually say. So be aware of what you say, especially, and of what you do. Sometimes it's hard to control what goes through our minds, but we have tremendous amount of control over what comes out of our mouths. As Jesus said one time, it's not so important what you put into your mouth as what comes out of your mouth.
Wow. Powerful words. One of my friends was talking about the power of words. There's some video out on Facebook, and it's nothing compared to what you just said, but it was so powerful, just how you can literally create with your words. Exactly what you said. I mean, it's just, we have that much power. Wow.
That's why affirmations work, and that's why when you said that one simple thing about your legs, all of a sudden you started having feeling again in your legs because you said it.
Well, it's fascinating. I watch it. I watch it all day long. It'll go in waves, and if I start to feel the numbness, I freak out and it gets worse. And then if I start feeling grounded and connected, the feeling comes back. So it's completely psychosomatic. So there's some other energy behind the energy that I'm sure I'll eventually clear soon. Very soon, like now. I'm calling it what I want. But it really is, yeah, remembering that power. What's that? Yeah, it's remembering that
there's
power.
nothing but now.
Yeah, there is nothing but now. It's true. It's true. It's true. It's very true.
Well, in the world of affirmations, they're nothing but now. In other words, every affirmation that you say is now. Never use a future tense in an affirmation. Always use the present tense.
Like I
am powerful. I am beautiful. I am filled with light. I am wealthy. I am strong. I am healthy. I am filled with well-being, and so on. When you're invoking the I am presence, it's very important that whatever you say after you say those words is something that you own, that you want to own.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow. That's powerful. I see such wisdom in your eyes. It's so fun to connect at that soul level. It really is. It's like we're all so interconnected. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with the audience? We have about 10 minutes left or so. Is there anything else you'd like to share?
Well, since we're on this subject, it's important that we realize that we're not victims, that we are volunteers, that we've created our own destiny through every thought, word, and deed that we've ever done. By the way, I didn't make up that phrase, we are not victims, we're volunteers. That was something that Terry Cole Whitaker made up, in case you know who she is. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it's important that we understand how much power we really have and that we're creating our own destiny moment by moment by moment. So we can do so many things to improve our lives: meditation, prayer, affirmation, and action, positive action. You know, you're never going to get anything if you just sit around and do affirmations and meditation all day. You have to actually go out and get it. Go out and do it. So action is just as important as all the other things.
Yeah.
So live a balanced, well-balanced life with meditation, with prayer, with doing affirmations and healing, and also getting out there and getting it done.
Do you have any advice for when sometimes there's conflict? Like I know for myself, I'll have a super clear connection, but then I'll have another like conflicting thing that comes in. Like I'll be acting. So say I'm like going in a certain direction and like this example, oh, it's not safe, right? It's like it's conflicting what I'm already doing. Do you have any advice for that where there's like feels like two voices or voice going against my own?
No.
I don't know, it's just coming.
Well, usually in that situation, what I do is I use astral entity healing prayer. Even if it isn't an actual astral entity, clearing the environment, clearing the atmosphere, clearing the energy field would be something that would be appropriate in that situation.
Yeah.
So I have several versions of the astral entity healing prayer in my book, Instant Healing. And one of them might be something like this. Dear ones, you are healed and forgiven, 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 healed and forgiven. You are unified with the truth of your being. You are lifted in divine love. You are filled with divine love. You are filled with divine light. You are free from pain. You are free from fear. You are free from this earthly vibration. You're free to go to your perfect place of expression. You are lifted into the light of God, lifted into the light of God, lifted into the light of God, lifted into the light of God. You are blessed, forgiven, and released into the love, light, and wholeness of the universal Christ. You are blessed, forgiven, and released into the love, light, and wholeness of the universal Christ. You are lifted into the light of God, lifted into the light of God. Go now in peace, go now in love. What that does is, it really lifts the atmosphere, clears the atmosphere. I felt an entire shift of energy as I said that prayer just now. Tremendous shift of energy, actually. I don't know if you noticed it, but I did.
Noticed huge. In fact, I noticed, I'll just be honest and transparent, energies that I picked up from past partners lifting off me that I'd picked up from them. That's how powerful that was, because I think a lot of times, like you said, we can be sponges and we don't even know what the hell is going on or why, but they're attracted to the light. And so for me, that's actually, I'm hearing the main reason I got sick in Bali is I went into this orphanage of 150 kids plus all these other partners that I've helped. And so it was just my system went on overload. As it was all these energies, it was like, I can't do this anymore. So literally my body shut down, like I wasn't able to walk. For not all the time, for hours, I had to heal, but it's just, that's what happens. So it's lifted. So I'm letting the light come back. I'm just telling you the story to give you a real life example of how powerful those energies, they're released, but how powerful it is to release them, let's say. Because if anybody, I'm so glad you did it, because I think the warning sign is if you're not feeling like yourself, or something, like you said, feels a little off, use that.
Right.
Use that prayer. And then the authority thing that you said, I really would love those prayers. I wish we could get access, but maybe you can, I don't know, we'll talk later, but if people can email you maybe or get your books with those prayers, because to repeat that.
Are you making them? video here? You're making a
Yeah,
video,
so
right?
this is recorded, so people can listen to this. I usually keep the videos open, but it may not be permanent. So the videos is just for this particular show. So I'd say get your books. So, what is your actual website, Susan, where they can get your books at?
Yeah. Well, you can get my books on Amazon. That's the best place to get my books.
Okay.
But I do sell them on the website. It just takes longer to get them if you order them from me, because I'm not quite as cheap as Amazon. But my website is drsusan.org. That's drsusan.org. And on that website, there's a ton of stuff, by the way, on that website. You can listen to radio interviews. You can read articles. You can get a lot of free stuff on that website. And you can also find out about my tours, retreats, and cruise ship seminars. Actually, I have another website that's devoted to that. But on that website, drsusan.org, you can read the first chapter of every one of my books, and you can order my books and also order CDs, DVDs. I have a lot of amazing products that you can order, and even downloadable products are there on that website. So drsusan.org. And then my other website, divinetravels.com. That's DIVINETRAVELS.com. Divine Travels, that's plural on the travels, divinetravels.com, where you can find out about tours, retreats. Now I'm doing cruise ship seminars that'll be coming up, and a lot of different things. So check it out, divinetravels.com.
Wow. Thank you so much, Susan. Such a great new soul friend I get to meet. Okay, last time I'm supposed to ask it. Is there anything else you want to leave the audience with?
Okay, so the most important thing to understand about life is this. There's the secret of life. How about that? The secret of life is you've been given a human body, which is a very rare thing to get in this universe, because with a human body, you can realize yourself, realize who you really are, and realize God. And other beings can't do that. They can't achieve the highest state of consciousness, but human beings can. So since you've been given this opportunity by landing in a human body, it's a good idea to make the most of it. And that is to engage in spiritual practices and make an effort to find out who you are, to realize who you really are, not who you think you are, to realize your true divine nature, your true self, and to live your true mission and purpose, which is really to realize God, to realize your true inner divinity. When I say God, I'm talking about your higher self. I'm talking about your true divine beingness. So make efforts as much as you possibly can to realize the self and to discover your true spiritual nature and to connect with spirit with a capital S, or God, or whatever you like to call it, goddess, whatever suits your fancy is fine, as long as it is spirit with a capital S, your true spirit. So make efforts to do that, and you'll lead a very happy life.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
In fact, you'll lead a life worth living, the divine life, the life divine.
Yeah, it's an extraordinary life because spirit is all powerful, right? And so that's why it's the essence of who we are, is that love, that spirit. So to connect with it, and like you said, realize it as our life and our power to create with our words, our listening to our inner guidance, and taking that action. It's a miracle. We get to live it. So awesome. Well, thank you so much, Susan. I really appreciate you being here today. I know you have a really busy schedule, so I'm sure until next time, we will see you soon. Bye, everyone.